Okay. We are live. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to the Sporting Life Notebook Now YouTube channel. And this content will of course be streamed live, but it'll also be videoed as well. So if you don't catch it now, you can catch it later. But what I want to talk today to you guys about are just the tools and tips and stuff like that for the things that I use to train bird dogs, especially coming up for spring training and so on and so forth. So I want to let a few people like kind of trickle into the stream and talk about it even more in depth. And of course, if we get questions and stuff like that at the end of the session, or maybe even throughout, if I can keep up with it, I will I'll post those. So I don't really need my glasses on right now. I also wanted to do this because I just finished doing a bird dog demo down in Thomasville, Georgia. And it's been 10 years of me doing that, that I have just really refined it and been able to not only teach people about or show people what it is that I'm doing with bird dogs, but also teach people the ways in which I go about it. Things that were really special to me were the methods and means that were taught to me by my mentors down in Thomasville, Neil Carter, you know, and having that foundation. And a lot of this content I actually never really recorded, and I probably should have. So we are here today doing it. That being said, I want to get started. So some of the things that I like to do with my dogs, of course, is obviously running them on wild birds, but that's not the case right now. Like it's spring, they need to start nesting and doing all of that stuff. And then there's a point where living in Georgia, it's just gonna get too hot. So you've got to have those things that allow you to kind of keep, you know, running your dog year round, particularly in the morning or in the evenings, you know, so they don't overheat down here and things like that. But you want to make sure that you're prepared. You don't need a lot of things, although I'm probably going to show you what feels like probably a lot of things. At the end of the day, like I will try my best to start as simple as possible, the things that you absolutely most definitely need, and move into some of the other things that I've accumulated over time. I want to do this series on tips, you know, training gear and stuff like that, but then also my dogs too. So I've got Drip, my English pointer, Joker, my English setter, and Spade, my other English setter, my girl. So yeah, but we'll get to that. One of the first things that I like to tell people is like, birds make a bird dog, right? So like you've got to have birds, and obviously, like I said, it's the nesting season. So you really it's not good, and it's not respectful, it's not ethical, it's not all of those things to be out while birds are coming up trying to, you know, produce and things like that. Like here in Georgia particularly, quail are, you know, wild quail are not heavily abundant in many areas. And in the areas that they are, you want to really be mindful of and respectful of that. So you need to find a very, very, very good trainer, but not a trainer, I'm sorry, a very good bird breeder, not trainer, you're the trainer. You need to find a very good bird breeder. But, you know, just for information, whoop, you'll have 5 whites. Yeah, now this is a female. All right, this here's a female. You can tell by the brown on the head right there. And then, let's see if I can pull out a male. Yep, so here's a male. Male, female right here, right, with the brown, male right here with the white. My video, male, female right here with the brown, male right here with the white. It doesn't really matter what you get. You're probably gonna get a combination of all of them anyway. You know, just in the process of getting birds. But in the wild, you want to leave these alone. They pair up, they mate, they do all of that stuff, but you want to leave the females alone, and the males actually sit on the eggs. But a lot of bird breeders will, a lot of the time, give you more males than they will females. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But you want to be you want to make sure that you get ahead of that. Like, so if not only do I say find at least 2 or 3 bird breeders in your area, in your state. Sometimes you're lucky and they're close. Sometimes they're, you know, on the road. You can also order them, which is its own thing. They'll get down to, they'll literally ship them to you through the USPS. But a lot of the times, man, you can go on Craigslist, you can go online, you can go on Facebook forums and stuff like that. Different areas where you can find bird breeders. And also just being in the community, you know, reach out to people. If you, you know, if you're new to it, you know, it feels kind of overwhelming, but you can do it. There are ways to connect with people to get birds. There are also folks that will let you maybe train with them. That's what I was doing early on, and they'll generally have birds and just be of service, help out, you know, flush birds or something like that. But the most important thing is for you to find a bird contact. That's going to be the thing that like really makes or breaks the experience. Now, the thing about pen raised quail, there's a couple of things, a few more things. Number one, I like pen raised quail because they're small. They can't necessarily hurt a dog, not usually, especially younger dogs, but you need to be careful. I also like it because the other type of training bird that a lot of people use are homing pigeons, right? Homing pigeons are great. They fly. Once you train them, they come back to where you can reuse them. Unlike quail that you can't reuse a lot of the times, unless you set up Johnny houses, which is another whole episode, a whole nother conversation I'll get to. But the thing about it, a lot of the times young dogs, the reason I like using quail, there's a pro and a con to it. The pros are, it's close to the real scent that you want, you know, aside from wild birds, they smell like quail. You know, the flesh is a little softer. Now, the con to pen raised birds are, unlike pigeons, a lot of pen raised birds will run if they are not like really good flying birds, really all of that stuff. They need to be kind of jumpy. But when you're training, sometimes like those birds just won't get up, and you have to really work through that with the dog to get them to not break and try to eat the birds, catch it, so on and so forth. So that's a part of it. Usually if you feed them well, if you're gonna keep birds, feed them wild game food. You know, you can get it at Tractor Supply. Usually if you feed them well, keep them really energized, and kind of interact with them every day, flush them and stuff, they'll usually flush pretty well. But the other thing too is with a young dog, like I said, a pigeon will sometimes scare a young dog, and that's not good. You don't want those problems. The downside to quail is that you have to be careful with. If you are training with them, try not to mess up on those birds. So that's the benefit to using pigeons. If you do mess up something in training, the association is not necessarily there with the quail. So that's just something to think about. You know, I believe bird dogs are malleable. So like, if you have a dog that can't withstand, you know, user error sometimes, trainer handler error, then we need to have a different conversation. You're going to mess up. I just try to limit how much you do that with. You know, the box that I keep my quail in, this here, just a little netted thing. It's old and kind of dirty, but I keep them in there. At the top, there's kind of like a rubbery kind of deal at the top, and they're kicking feathers and stuff at my face. But there's kind of a rubbery kind of a insert that you can put them in, and they can't come out. It's an old box, it's weathered and all kinds of stuff, but it has lasted me for a very long time. All right, the next thing that you guys should be thinking about when it comes to training bird dogs. The next most important thing that you are going to need, if nothing else, check cords. Okay, now my check cords, I have two different types. I've got a really long one and a relatively short one. By short, I mean like 6-7 feet. And there's a reason for that. So the short one being, the long one is for, you know, like finishing and being able to step on the cord and stuff like that, but being able to operate and things like that at a distance. You want to be able to have at least, you know, 15-20 feet between you and the dogs, and still be able to manage and that dog maintain its composure. But what's most important between those two are being able to handle your dog at 6 feet, right? Your dog is not going to handle well and reasonable and under control at 6 feet away. Your dog is not going to do it at 20 feet away, okay? 15, 16, 20 feet away. So the next most important thing, I would say right there, parallel with the birds, are a good check cord. I have multiple dogs, so like, I mean, I've got multiple leads and stuff, but you know, just one. And you can get, I mean, I made this years ago. You can order them from Dogs Unlimited, you know, or other different, you know, training suppliers. But this here, I made it with some, you know, excess rope and a clamp from Tractor Supply. You know, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, it just has to be strong. I do say though, if you're gonna make your own, it's kind of a diamond braid in this. And it's a much more firm and secure cord. So like I said, the most important thing about that is if that dog is not going to handle at 5 feet, it's not going to handle at, you know, at 20. Now, after that, now this is something that is kind of controversial for people. I don't know why, but it is. The old school ones, so this is a pinch collar, okay? Pinch collar goes onto your check cord here, right here. And inside, you can see these are dull. The studs inside are dull. A good buddy of mine makes it, Joe Plody, is a trainer. But again, different, you know, upland bird hunting suppliers, bird dog suppliers and stuff like that, they sell them. I know Lion Country Supply does. They sell a different one, but Jared Moss, he's another trainer. I cannot remember his social media. I can get it. He makes them too. But like I said, you just want it to where it stops. So the way that this works, you know, I can put my hand through it. Basically, if my arm is the dog's neck, it basically checks the dog when they pull too much, and really regulates them and keeps them in a decent state of mind when you're training. You don't want them kind of jumping everywhere and doing this. It's good for whoa work. It's good for just heel work. It's one of the most important disciplinary and obedience tools that I use in and out of training. So that's it. So now, you know, they're leather. I mean, mine's is toe up from the flow up. You know, I've got a couple of them. So yeah, that's it. Now, the next most important thing down the list is a bird bag. Get yourself a bird bag. Now this one has a pretty firm snap kind of clip, you know, so the birds can't get out. A lot of folks sell them. This one is from Dogs Unlimited as well. Soggy Dog makes them. I've had a few different ones, but you're going to need this to basically maintain and keep birds inside of, right? So, you know, you'll have these birds, you'll just put it inside, The good thing about it is it kind of snaps closed. So like it's fairly secure. Sometimes there are some that are made like messenger bags and things like that, and you open it and then birds fly out. I've had those. You know, they're good if they have magnets in them, but this one is fairly standard. I can walk around with it, you know, have it around my shoulder, do things like that. And, you know, I got space here. I know it's closed, but then the bird is down here as well. Birds can breathe. They don't overheat in the bag. You know, it's breathable mesh, so on and so forth. And you don't have to worry. You can put about 3 or 4 of them in there. I usually don't go more than that. And that's for all things like bird placement or, you know, working on, you know, flushing and things like that, where I might want to kick around and have a bird in the bag and let it, you know, throw it off after I shoot the gun. Now, speaking of shooting the gun, I am one of those people. Yes, I'm a hunter. Yes, absolutely. I hunt. I love it. I love wild birds and all of those things. But before that, before I have to take birds and things like that, before I feel like I want to do that, what's more important is the dog work, right? It's conservation, dog work, seeing the dog, showmanship, so on and so forth. That is the most important aspect of all of this that we do. And so before you go and buy a super expensive shotgun, and when you do that, you need to purchase a Beretta shotgun, 686 series. I made a bunch of them this year for the 500th anniversary, so we'll talk about that too. But before you do all of that, get yourself a blank pistol. This is a starter pistol. It's just like what the guys use in track and field, revolver style, you know, revolver style. I done dropped 2 of the blanks that I want to show y'all, but you know, it doesn't fire anything, although you should always be safe. It doesn't fire anything, although you should always be safe when you're using it. I'll tell you where you can actually get the blanks for it too, because I have a little bit different process. But this here, when I work my dogs, I can go out on public land. I can go out training. I'm always gonna take this with me. All right, this here, I don't need to take birds out. I tell people, you can be a bird dog person, a bird dog owner, and actively work dogs, own birds, and not kill a thing. That is the most enjoyable piece of being able to go out with my dogs, is just taking a blank, because all they need to hear is the report of the gun, and then the session is over, right? When the bird's flush, bow, get your training. What it also does is take your mind off of having to focus on hitting something. Focus on the dog, right? It takes your mind off of having to do all of that, and really allows you to put in what I think is necessary, which is your time, focus, energy, and your passion, right? Focus on those things. So a blank pistol, you know, the holster, again, you can get it at a Dogs Unlimited, Lion Country Supply. I've used all of these suppliers before. Gun Dog Supply, I've used them all. And they're all good people, all great friends. I say Dogs Unlimited because I have a much more personal relationship with Marsha Davison, and they're great folks. The prices are really good too. But this also holsters, you know, it sits on your belt. And then this little clip came from the company Cable Gangs. You know, and it's there. I clip it to my belt loop because I've lost a blank pistol by not having it clipped, and then you'll be in the interaction in the situation, birds flush up, you get excited because the dog does something really good. Next thing you know, you dropped your blank. So that is like, those are some of the like initial things that I use to work my dogs. With a check cord, the benefit of it again, before, and I'm gonna get to the next thing, but you can finish your dog with a check cord. It takes a little bit longer, but you can definitely do it. Now, the reason being is you can, you know, basically put the pressure at the dog's hip and things like that, and we'll break it and all of that, and I will get into that into another episode. But now, let's talk about the next most important thing. Releasers, launchers, and traps. So I've had a number of different traps. I've had tip-up traps, which are these just wire mesh things. Those are the cheapest and most affordable ones. I don't have it with me right now. It must be, I must have left it in my shop, but I will pull that out. But tip-up traps are great. The catch to them is, don't lose them, right? Like, they're small, they're wire, they're fairly cheap. You can get them for about anywhere between $20 and $50, depending on where. And you can get multiples of them. You know, they stack, so they're fairly portable and mobile. And yeah, now there are a couple of other ones that I use. You've got launchers and you've got releasers. So this is a bird launcher right here. So, and it is remote launcher. So this, when it's on, this transmitter right here and remote, they sync up and allow this to launch remotely. So what it looks like, this will go in here, right? So you'll push that in there and you will, mine's is not on and set up, so y'all gonna have to bear with me. And I'm trying to do it like this for the camera. You'll push this in and it'll lock. Now, there's a piece that you can stick in here, right? And it'll, mine's just, oh, let me do it. I done beat mine up so much, y'all. There we go. You can stick that piece in there and it will just lock and basically allow this to not come open because it's spring loaded. So when you push that receiver, it is going to open up. And when it does, you'll have basically, it'll launch just like that. The bird will come out. You can adjust the spring tension back here. Usually they come out the box pretty set. It runs just off a 9-volt battery. You know, really cool. So this I got from Lion Country Supply. They actually have their own model or their own brand of them. You know, all of it comes there, you know, and I've used this for years. I mean, and now the catch about launchers, and this is where the tip-ups versus launchers versus receivers come in. So a launcher, you need to be mindful of how close that dog is to the launcher. And what that means is, again, it can pop just like a gun, just like anything, just like a bird flapping its wings. It can scare a dog, just the burst of it. And you can actually make a dog sour on that by launching it essentially in its face. So again, that's why you adjust the spring tension. You can have it release a little looser, a little tighter, and more explosive. Usually you don't want to plant them in super thick grass because it kind of hangs up the explosion part of them. But you do want to make sure it's covered. Again, all of these releasers are ventilated so the birds don't overheat. And they can breathe and things like that. Now, the other is a bird releaser. This is a Cody gear. I think this was Cody gear, but you get this one at Dogs Unlimited without the Garmin piece here. So this top piece here is, again, just another transmitter. And so what happens is this actually slides up and slides down for you to put the birds in. And then the bottom piece actually comes open. Boom. So it comes open for the bird to release. Now, what I like about this is you don't really worry about the explosion piece from the birds. Out of all of them, that's probably my favorite one, is the releaser versus the launcher, because the birds fall and then they kind of just go up. Sometimes they'll fall and like not flush, but I mean, I take that as no different than a bird coming out of a launcher and going up and coming straight down. It happens from time to time. It is all mechanical, right? And just as a promo, I'll talk about this. That is the information, the Cody Hunt gear information on the side. Thomas Wasowski is the CEO. You go to codyhuntgear.com and you can order it. So yeah, and then this is a Garmin, I think it's called a Pro Control, but it is essentially just a receiver, transmitter. It's got like the sound of a duck on it. It's different modes and things. You make it quack, or it'll beep. if you can't find it out and about. It runs off batteries, but really good system. I really like it. And yeah, it's been really effective. I need to change the batteries for the season because I do, but my control still going. I need to change the batteries in this one, but it works really well. Yeah, so I'm excited to have it. All right, now I'm getting to the nitty gritty of it. And some of the last things. Oh, what I didn't also show you, so you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and these are the blanks that I use for my blank gun. They're just the 22 Ram set or DeWalt. I actually prefer the DeWalt ones, yellow box with the green label, but Ram set makes them too. I get the threes, right? The threes are not too terribly loud. They're not super soft. I still do not fire my blank gun next to my dog. I give my dogs about 10 feet of space, 15 feet of space, depending on their experience, maybe even more if they're young and I don't want to sour them on. Gun shyness is a completely avoidable issue. It is man-made. You can avoid your dog being gun shy. All right, getting to the end. The last thing, and there's a reason why this is the last thing. Electronic collars. The collars that I recommend are the Garmin Pro 550 Plus or the Garmin 300i or the Garmin 200i. I've had all three of them. My favorites are the Garmin Pro 550 Plus. This here. Turn it on. Garmin, turning it on. It's GPS based, and this is the Garmin TT25. Lights up like that. This I can basically handle like a piano, essentially. Let me get that from untangled. It's got the knobs up there at the top, and you can turn it. There are different modes, but it is the most intuitive tool that I use for bird dog training. I basically can handle it with 2 fingers. I know what dogs I have based on these collars. I know which ones I'm controlling. You can have up to 3 dogs on one transmitter. I've got my 3, so I can run all of them there. I usually run 2 dogs at a time anyway, but I've run 3 and had it successfully. This thing will be here when the apocalypse is over. It is the most intuitive, and I feel like it's indestructible. And then the case for it, a lot of people at this point make them. This device has been out for so long. Garmin, when Garmin purchased Tritronics, they got a lot of the technology from Tritronics that was really good. The Pro Control is also a Tritronics device as well. But yeah, this is my favorite training tool, the Pro 550 Plus and the TT25 collars. The reason why I wanted to show that tool last. If you cannot train your dogs with a blank pistol, some birds and a check cord, and you cannot, you need to finish your dogs by hand, right? I believe in having my hands on the dogs, gentle touch, letting them know you're there. If you cannot do it with your hands, don't even think about it with an e-collar. It's just not, you need to be able to learn how to finish dogs that way. Just shocking a dog into submission is not a way to train, right? And really an e-collar is an enforcement tool. It is not terror. It is not something designed like men, women, humans. We have this thing about wanting to impose our will on nature, and we have to learn how to not work with that. E-collars are more or less a safety tool. When your dog is way too far out and you can see it on the road or something like that, or you just kind of have an idea of where they are, depending on the system that you're using. With a 300i, there's a map. With a Pro 550, there's a compass on it, and a distance reader and stuff like that. But you need to be able to handle that within the space. Like I said, 6 feet. My dogs can be 3, 4, 5, 600 yards away and still feel like I'm right there because I spend so much time working them on, with my hands, doing that foundational work, doing that yard work. Right now, the start of the spring is the time to start doing that stuff. And it's really important. Now, if you are a person that utilizes retrieving, I always start just with a retrieving dummy and a quail wing, 2 quail wings. And if I want to incentivize them to do it, get some duct tape, tie that wing, throw it, and do it. I mean, these are fairly cheap. The dogs don't really see the orange ones. This is pretty faded at this point. They see white better. You have some that are black, and I get the cotton ones too. So for young dogs, so it doesn't hurt their mouths. I just kind of stuck with using this one. My dogs are not the greatest retrievers. Spade is a good retriever, but for pointer guys, if it's important to you, great. I use soft retrieving dummies and stuff like that. If it's not important, no worries. They have plastic ones. You can use those too. They float and do all kinds of stuff. Usually the white dummies and whatever you get are the most visible for a dog. Then you have some that are split black and white, and they kind of flash in the air for the dog to see when you throw it. And then the orange ones are the hardest for the dog to see, but easy for you to see in the brush and stuff like that. With those dummies, like I said, you can use bird feathers, bird wings. There's also scent that you can put on the plastic ones. There's all kinds of them. So yeah, I think that is important. And then training treats. So this is actually from Pack Provisions, a retriever stick that, or a fetch stick. That you can use it also for the dogs that are food motivated. This really helps. It's this, but tastes good, right? And so you can use these. My dogs kind of took to them, kind of, but again, I think that's more so they're just not the super awesome retrievers, right? It's that probably be for your German short hairs and more retrieve driven dogs. But they do work. They're great. These here. So, supplements from Pack Provisions. Use these supplements. They are fantastic. There are energy supplements and they have recovery supplements as well. I give mine I give dogs supplements. I just give them one a day. Usually if I try to remember, but usually I at least give it to them 3 times a week. So at minimum 3 times a week. I probably over supplement them, but one a day is cool for each of my dogs. Just throw it in there with their food. Some of the ingredients on the back: chicken byproduct meal, tapioca starch, brown rice, corn, fat, diet. It's a whole thing. And matter of fact, go to packprovisionspet.com. Like on the back, you can see all of this stuff. Just go there and they'll have it. But it's 20% protein guaranteed per treat. Is 1.6 grams, 12% fat, 0.96 grams per treat, carbs 49%, fiber 7%, moisture 10%. So very, very, very good. One treat is about 8 grams. But I really like them. I give them to my dogs. I found a lot of value in the Grip. What are you doing? I found a lot of value in giving the energy and recovery supplements to my dogs. So with that being said, folks, I wanted to make sure I got this video out to y'all. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna do more of these. If you guys like it, let me know in the comments. Give me some more feedback as to what else you guys want to know about, what else you guys want to talk about. I think the next video I'm gonna do, why an English pointer versus why an English setter. I think that'd be kind of a cool, insightful video. I've got English pointers and English setters. All of these tools and gear I use to work with them. Like I said, I'm Darrell. I'm Orvis endorsed wing shooting guide, Beretta ambassador, upland hunting ambassador, and I am the hunting guide at the Foxhall Resort in Douglasville, working on, really building up that upland bird hunting program too while we're here. So if you're in the Atlanta area, give me a call, come visit me, at Foxhall. We go out for hunting and stuff like that. I'll be doing some training workshops too pretty soon. So, y'all stay tuned and all of that stuff. But thank y'all again. And I look forward to next time and getting this information to y'all.